Welcome, adventurers!
Hello.
Hey, I'm Goose.
I'm Turnip.
So this is just going to be a quick dev diary because I realized something that in Hotshot I had already had a plan and I started talking about what the game was about. When I did the sculpting for this terrain that you see right here, I never actually went about saying like, this is what the game's about. This is what we're going for.
This type of grid or the other type?
No, a regular. So it's like lines going like this across, and then X. It's hexagonal.
All right. You can keep going.
But Turnip's working on a background thing for the game that I wanted to do. Anyway, so this is going to be general purpose me talking about what this game actually is, going over some of the basics, and how I'm kind of planning to set it up since I'm doing so much at once and there's so much sort of all over the place. There's no real plan set in place because I just don't have one. I can't really throw one together with everything going on the way it is. That said, this is going to be us talking general purpose about what this game is about. This game is called Skin and Bones. It's a common saying, but it is a play on words, and it is the name of the restaurant that comes up in the game. It is about building up a small town in this very, very rocky terrain that I still have to work on a little bit. But Skin and Bones is about building a fantasy town in a fantasy setting in an environment that is very hard to live in, so it comes with its own challenges. The people who are trying to set it up have advantages that allow them to do that. And this little map that I have is going to be where the town is built. All the facilities will be around here, and I'll put barrier walls around so you can't see the edges. And I'm going to try and make an HDMI to go around the edge to do that. So, concept. You're building a fantasy town, and you go through the process of, like, from the very beginning, what you need basic resources-wise, food, water, not power, but shelter. Power comes much later, but it's that general purpose process of, like, you're not just in a town that already exists helping it grow. You have to start a town from the beginning, which means getting resources together and getting people to use those resources in your location. As that goes along, I'm arranging this to be sort of matching with the books as they get released because they are a continuation of the story and their own story in and of itself. I want to make the games playable without reading the books because you should be able to play the games and enjoy them without knowing all the nitty-gritty details, which isn't too complicated to do, but reading the books and understanding the story of the people and all that it definitely has an impact on the
It's like nostalgia, but not.
Yeah. It definitely has an impact on you understanding the characters or knowing details that you probably wouldn't otherwise. It still doesn't give away too much because they are built to be sort of compatible with each other. There's a bit of a pacing to it that works really well together, but also works on its own. I designed the story for this game, actually, before I did the story for the books, and I integrated the books after I did the games. Yes, but hexagonal. 6. All the squares should be 6-sided.
What?
All the squares should be 6-sided. I want to do a hexagonal system because I feel like they fit a little bit better and they're a little bit easier to.
I don't understand.
So, I gotta get a pen and paper real quick.
Sorry.
It's all right. But that is part of what we're doing right now. I'm trying to get her. She wants to make a little graphic for you guys to look at during some of this to get you an understanding of certain mechanic I'm going to talk about, because as I'm doing this chapter based, I'm releasing the chapters of this game with the books that sort of correspond. So the first book's going to have the first chapter with it, and there's 5 books in this little mini series, the sub series, and then there's 5 chapters that are going to go along with that. Every chapter I plan to introduce with the game is going to expand upon previous mechanics and introduce new ones. So it grows as you go, but the mechanics aren't like super massive. Most of them are relatively small. The biggest one, of course, is coming up in the first chapter because that makes it easier to build upon it later. So in the beginning, you need to get basic resources. Food, water, shelter. The mechanics aren't built around those, but those are the first things you're going to establish in the town. the natural watering hole in the middle of these big three... No, it's over there. That big watering hole. Let me get over there. The big watering hole in the middle you get water from, and there's a small purification system that gets more complex as the chapters progress, and as the game progresses you can get more water out of it by enhancing the water purification system and all that. But you can get water out of it in the beginning, which is important. As for food, you have to go hunting, which is where our main character, the immortal Fiara, comes in. Like this, love. So it's a grid system like this. See what I mean? So it's all hexagonal squares, except that's very poor.
Like that?
Not exactly. Like this.
Sorry.
It's alright. Well, I knew it was going to take a bit to, like, explain out, so that's why I was setting it up.
Oh, so you want combs instead?
Those are hexagons.
But they look like combs.
Yeah,
like
a honeycomb pattern, yes. Hexagons. So the first big mechanic that gets introduced is the hunting. As Fiara, you can't die. But the biggest threat is big dangerous stuff can still rip you apart, and you have to put yourself back together. So to lose a hunt, you lose all your bits. But you can't exactly be eaten because you're not made of squishy bits. Yes. But so I went through a couple different ideas for how I wanted to do... God... I went through a couple ideas of how I wanted to do the hunting system. I thought about just a regular, like, open world. You set traps, you scare creatures into them, and they get caught in the traps. Or a system where you just literally go out and you shoot darts and tranquilize the monsters, or you shoot darts and kill them. But the one I settled on, and the one that I'm settling on now that I really like the idea of and that I've gotten a lot of really interesting feedback on, is a turn-based hunting system where it's like on a grid. Just like these squares, like every square is a space of movement, and you hide in the squares that your like prey can't see. You set traps in squares, and then you scare them to hopefully get them to go along certain paths. That requires a little bit of like AI finagling, but any of these systems would.
So what do you want?
That's pretty good as is. Just that grid system on like a bleeding savanna setting, with maybe like a little character on it or a Chinder. Because Chinders are one of the first things you're going to hunt, and they do not fight back. They just run away, and they're pretty good at getting away. But that's the whole point, is you're not meant to be caught. You're meant to be hiding from them. So stealth-focused mechanics and all that. And Fiara is a built fighter. She can hold her own. And like I said, she can reattach her limbs, which is going to be a mechanic for some of the bigger hunts later. But in the general purpose form of what this is, the whole concept being you're trying to get food for this town in the beginning. Not really looking for advanced like resources or anything. You're just trying to get food. So you want to hunt Chinders to get meat, but you also want to set up a farm that's growing these. That's pretty good. That's growing these animals regularly. So in the beginning, you just kill them and get the food to start building up a populace. As you progress a little bit in the first chapter, you get a little, what's it called? A coop. And you can put them in the coop. You have to keep the population high enough that they can produce faster than they die out, which is going to be the first big challenge, is getting enough Chinders going at everyone. He messaged about like what are you doing? You're talking to yourself, and then he read the actual alert I put out. But yeah, that's the general purpose idea in the beginning, is you're getting enough Chinders together so that they can start breeding faster than they die off or faster than you guys are eating them. As you do that, you can kind of recruit or buy more populace for your town to grow, and as it grows, it can get more complicated and have more advanced facilities going. As these people come, they're also going to want to run their own shops, which is why as the chapters go along, you get new buildings and new facilities. I need to fix these shadows. The second mechanic we introduce is actually going to be farming along the plant route. The plants in the Bleeding Savannah are not edible to most humanoids anywhere. They are not readily eatable besides the life that's developed here to eat the rough, hardy, metallic stuff. So, pretty early on, you get introduced to some people, and one person in particular can grow the crops that you need to by mutating them with some other crops from other parts of the world. So you can make crops that can survive in this hardy place, or that can survive in this environment, and you can make a bunch of different kinds of crops. So in the second mechanic for the first chapter is going to be the growing of crops and the food production that way. The third and final one for the first chapter is going to be the potion making. And the potion making is going to have a big impact on your abilities in the hunt, along with other stuff later, brewing into other stuff. Potion brewing into more brewing. But,
Okay.
So, potions would be a combination... That's pretty good, yeah. Nice.
That look good?
I think so, yeah. Potion brewing in the beginning is going to be a combination of...
What would you like now?
I don't know. We can talk about stuff.
Oh, I meant about the Bleeding Savannah.
I mean, that's about all I wanted from that, was just a grid system on that. Like I said, you could add a little Chinder or whatever. I really haven't thought that out. But I wanted a representation of the hunting system that I had in mind. A turn-based stealth mechanic hunting system that uses a grid to sort of outline where things can see and where they're going to move and all that. So you learn the patterns of certain prey that I'm going to try and fine-tune to be different enough. And there are going to be intelligent human enemies in later chapters that I'll have to finagle. But for this first one, it's going to be nothing but animals in this first little area. Several of those animals are going to be pretty easy to hunt and pretty easy to get into pins to farm. Other creatures are not going to be so easy. In fact, some are not going to be capturable in any sense. They're either way too big or way too gnarly. They will not stay in a cage, or no cage can contain them. And we'll get to those when we get to those. Oh no. I got stuck. I still have to finagle, because this is not how the character is going to move around the map anyway. We're not going to have super jumping. This is just, I did this so I could look around. But, and there's going to be bridges established. You're going to pay to have bridges set up between these places, fences built. That's the big thing is, as you get more people in the town, it's going to be kind of like taxes, but you're more so charging just for the food. Or you're charging by having them bring in supplies like wood and stuff. So that's how we're sort of establishing the building of the town is, hey, we have food, so do you want to help us get more food? And then as that goes, more facilities open up and all that. The first chapter is not super exciting, but it's also because I am currently solo developing. I don't have any assistance with this, so it's general purpose. Me throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. Along with that, further with that, a big thing that I've been thinking about, or that I'm trying to figure out for the first game, is the hunting mechanics in and of themselves, because I'm thinking, like I said, grid system. All the hunting taking place on different environments, all based around a grid system that you have to learn how to manipulate. I'm finagling the different aspects of that, how vision cones for creatures would work.
Does that look good?
I think so, yeah.
Alright.
Or how your movement around the map would work, because there will definitely be obstacles you can hide behind and stuff, but there's a lot more to think about during a hunt than just where to hide or where to place traps. So I'm working with that, and I've got a couple friends throwing ideas at me. If you have any ideas for stuff like that, throw them down in the comments. Join the Discord, which will be linked in the description, and let me know. Any of those options are available. But yeah, that's the general gist of what I'm going for now. And so what I'm going to probably be developing next, like I said, book is main focus, but I'm still doing minor stuff for this in the background. I'm probably going to make a texture, just a basic texture for all of this Bleeding Savannah stuff, so we have one just to use. And I'll probably make some more advanced ones maybe later. Maybe. But, the first thing I want to develop is getting the grid system set up to test it out and get character movement around it going, setting up vision cones for prey, setting up the trap system and all that. Because your general purpose first thing is going to be getting animals into a pen. And the first animal you should be going for is chinders. I'm working out a system also for how you track down and hunt the chinders. I'm thinking of a percentage-based system where you pick an environment, say, I'm looking for this kind of creature here, you have a certain chance to find them, and you have a chance to find other creatures along the way. Maybe a fill limit of up to 4 different kinds of prey in an environment. Certain prey is definitely going to take up more than 1 hexagon of space on a grid, because some of the stuff you'll be hunting, like I said, too big for cages.
How many heads should chinders have?
Chinders have 1 head.
Oh.
They have 4 wings and 6 legs. But they're like turkey chickens. And they are readily available in the Bleeding Savannah. They're one of the few small critters in the Bleeding Savannah because they make little burrow nests. They make burrow nests inside the trees because chinders have vicious-looking little beaks. They're pretty... I wouldn't call them dangerous, but they're pretty tough as far as, tiny little chicken birds go. They still run away from shit. They're definitely still prey animals, but being where they live, they have to be hardy just to survive here without any predators. The predators are just one more thing on the list of, oh god, I have to get away from this too. I'm going to set up border walls and all that to make this a little bit cleaner. But first chapter, introduction, is going to be the hunting, the farming, and the potion brewing. Those 3 major things that are going to be my big focus. I'm fleshing out all the basic concepts for all of those mechanics, along with just basic stuff for walking around the town and all that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And then the next chapter, I have ideas. I don't want to solidify anything yet because I don't want to throw myself in a ditch I can't dig my way out of. But I feel like I can handle those first 3 pretty well. And like I said, I have to focus on the book right now because I want that done before I start fully focusing on the game. I would love to be able to do them both at the same time, but I don't have the manpower because it's just me. But that is what we have right now. I'm going to try, just like the books, I'm going to try and keep this at 1 a week for production of hey, here's some content. But that is it for this. Just getting the concepts out there, getting the ideas for what this first chapter of the game is going to be and how I'm sort of setting it up for development, and seeing feedback. Any ideas or any concepts that you guys hear and like, or come up with yourself and want to throw at me, go ahead. If you want to ask more questions about it, you can ask in the Discord, or we can do another one of these. We can do a Dev Diary Q&A. That's adorable. That is pretty accurate too. It's basically it's fat. They're fat like Chinder is fat like a chick, or fat like a turkey, but with the features of a chicken.
Does it have a tail?
Yeah, or they have
Are they
the
plumage,
males.
or
Yeah, the males have rooster tails, and the females just have the little chicken poof. But yeah, that's generally what I'm going for. So within the next week, I hope I'll be able to get something else out. If not, then
Look,
I also
tail.
plan on pretty soon doing another. Well, they don't have turkey plumage, but they have big tails like roosters do. The big arcing feathers. Yeah, because it's a big part of looking good for females and all that. But there's that for the beginning. Like I said, comments, anything is helpful. Any questions for the development in general, or where I'm going with stuff, I'm happy to answer. I love hearing from people. Patreon or not, I love hearing from anybody. The Patreon is just for getting the early access to the book and later stuff with the game when I'm more on that. But for now, it's just I just want to hear back from people. I like hearing ideas. I like having those concepts thrown at me. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, good. We're gonna have to cut all these O's. I'm just gonna go down to the ditch now. But I will be trying to keep in touch with people about what's going on. I have been on the book quite heavily. I've been working quite heavily, but I've also been editing a lot, trying to figure out how I want to word stuff in the book. And the podcast, the world building podcast, I definitely want to talk about some stuff that's going on in the world and in development there. And I have some friends who want to talk about world building in general there, D&D stuff. So if there's any chat that wants to go on about that, there's that. For now, farewell adventurers.
Goodbye.
And I hope to hear from you guys. I hope to...
See you next week.
Yeah, I hope to keep these going and keep stuff flowing. I need to stay on task. But keep me on that then.